I dropped my husband off at the airport early that morning, trying to act normal even though my chest felt tight. The glass doors kept sliding open and shut, letting in cold air that smelled like coffee and strong cleaning spray. He kissed me on the cheek and smiled like this was just another simple trip. He told me he'd call as soon as he landed, and I nodded, forcing a small smile back. My 10-year-old stood close to me, quiet, watching him walk away with his bag, getting smaller and smaller until he disappeared into the crowd. On the drive back through London, I tried to fill the car with small talk. I pointed out a funny sign. I asked what they wanted for dinner. I even suggested hot chocolate and a movie night. But my child didn't answer the way they usually did. They stared out the window, their fingers twisting the seat belt strap again and again. I told myself they were just sad, that they missed him already, that kids feel things deeply and don't always have words for it. When we reached the street that led to our home, my child leaned forward, so close their whisper brushed my ear. Their voice sounded thin and shaky, like they were scared of the words themselves. "Dad, Mom, we can't go home," they said. "I heard Mom planning something bad for us." The sentence hit me so hard I almost missed the turn. For a moment I couldn't tell if my child meant something childish, like a surprise or a punishment, or something worse that didn't belong in a kid's mouth. I asked what they meant, trying to keep my tone light, but my hands were suddenly tight on the wheel. My child shook their head fast. "I'm not joking," they said. "I heard her on the phone. She said she would fix it when he was gone." She said it like she hated us. My stomach dropped, and the road in front of me blurred for a second. I felt heat rise in my face, then cold rush down my arms. I didn't go home. I kept driving past our turn as if I had made a simple mistake. I took us toward busy streets where people walked fast and didn't look at each other for long. I parked near a crowded row of shops and sat still, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. My child stayed low in the back seat, eyes wide, breathing shallow. I told myself I was only buying time, only thinking, only being careful. But deep inside, something ugly and real was waking up, and I could feel it pressing against my ribs like a warning. I stayed parked longer than I meant to, staring through the windshield like the glass could explain what my child had just told me. People passed by with shopping bags and coffee cups, moving in straight lines, laughing, checking their phones, living normal lives. I tried to borrow their calm, but it wouldn't stick to me. My child stayed small in the back seat, shoulders curled forward, eyes flicking to every person who came too close. I kept my voice soft. "You did the right thing telling me," I said, even though I wasn't sure what right looked like anymore. My hands trembled when I reached for my phone, and I hated that my child could see it. I checked the screen and saw a missed call from my husband. My first thought was relief. Call him, tell him, let him fix it. Then the fear came right after, sharp and fast. What if calling him made it worse? What if someone was watching the account, the phone plan, the location? I lowered the phone into my lap as if it were hot. My child whispered, "Don't. Please." That one word, please, held so much panic that it made my throat tighten. I didn't call. I turned the phone face down and tried to think like someone who wasn't scared. I told myself we only needed a short plan. Just a small plan. I could drive to a friend's house, but then I pictured my friend's address on a map, easy to trace. I could go to the police, but my mind flashed to questions I couldn't answer, to the shame of sounding confused, to the risk of being sent right back home if I couldn't prove anything. I could go to a hotel, but hotels asked for cards and names. Every option looked like a door that might lock behind us. So I stayed where I was, in the car, in the open, where I could leave fast if I had to. A couple walked past the front of the car, laughing. Behind them, a man stopped near the corner and leaned against the wall like he had all day. He didn't look at the shops the way people usually did. He looked at the road. He looked at the cars. Then he looked at mine. I told myself I was imagining it, that fear was turning strangers into threats. But my body didn't believe my own excuses. My shoulders went stiff, and my heart started pounding in my ears. Then my phone buzzed. A message popped up from a number I didn't recognize. "Where are you?" I felt like the air left the car. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I didn't touch it. My child made a small sound, like a gasp they were trying to swallow. I watched the man at the corner lift his phone to his ear. He spoke, then he turned slowly, scanning the street. Scanning the line of parked cars. Scanning as if he expected one of them to move. His gaze landed on my windshield again, and I couldn't breathe properly. In that moment, I understood something in a way I had never understood it before. Danger doesn't always announce itself.
Sometimes it looks like a man standing still.
Sometimes it looks like someone with a phone who doesn't belong to your life, yet somehow knows how to find your fear. I kept my eyes forward, but I could feel sweat at the back of my neck. My child slid down lower in the seat, trying to hide behind the headrest, like being unseen could make them safe. I wanted to start the car and drive away, but I was scared that sudden movement would pull attention like a string.
I forced myself to be slow.
I breathed in once, shaky, and put my hand on the gear stick without jerking.
I checked my mirrors like a normal person would.
I waited as two more people passed the car, one with a backpack, one carrying a paper bag. The man at the corner kept talking into his phone, and his eyes kept darting. Every second stretched like it was being pulled apart. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number, "Don't make this hard."
My stomach twisted. My hands went colder.
I didn't answer.
I didn't even unlock the phone.
I simply turned the screen off and set it in the cup holder like it was nothing. I was trying to act calm for my child, but inside my mind was screaming.
I didn't know who was texting me.
I didn't know how they got my number.
I didn't know what hard meant.
But my body knew one thing for sure, staying in that spot was no longer safe. I waited until the man looked away, just a slight turn, a small moment of distraction, and I started the engine. The sound felt too loud, like a shout in a quiet room. My child flinched, but didn't speak. I eased out of the parking space slowly, like I had all the time in the world. I forced my face into a blank expression, even though my jaw ached from clenching. I turned into traffic, blended in, and drove like a normal person with normal plans. Only when we were a few streets away did I let myself breathe deeper.
My hands still shook on the wheel.
I didn't know if anyone was following, and I didn't want to check too much and make it obvious. I took random turns. I circled around places with lots of cars. I changed lanes calmly. I watched the mirrors, not staring, just glancing. Once, I thought I saw the same dark car behind us, and my heart jumped, but then it turned off at a different street. I didn't know if I was safe, but I knew I had to keep moving.
My child finally spoke, voice tiny. "I'm sorry," they said.
"No," I said quickly, too quickly.
"Don't say that. You're not in trouble.
You helped me." I reached back with one hand, still driving, and my fingers found theirs for a second.
Their skin was cold.
The fact that my child was cold made me angry in a new way, angry at whoever was doing this, angry at myself for not seeing something sooner, angry at a world where a kid had to whisper fear in the back seat.
We drove until the sky started to dim.
I picked a place that looked plain and forgettable, somewhere no one would brag about staying. A small building with tired curtains and a sign that flickered like it didn't fully believe in itself. I parked where I could see the entrance and the street at the same time. I told my child to keep their hood up and stay close. We walked in like we belonged there, like this was a normal stop in a normal day.
The receptionist barely looked up.
I asked for a room for one night, speaking clearly, not too nervous, not too friendly. I paid $120 in cash, my fingers stiff as I counted it out. Cash felt like the only honest thing left. No signals, no trails, no shared accounts. The key was small and light in my hand, but it felt like a turning point. Inside the room, the air smelled faintly of soap and old fabric. The bedspread was patterned and rough. My child stood near the door, still tense, like they expected someone to burst in.
I checked the lock twice.
I looked out the window and memoized what I could see, the street lamp, the parked cars, the way the shadows moved when someone passed. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the silence speak. "Tell me exactly what you heard," I said. My child took a deep breath, and their eyes filled, but they didn't cry. "I heard her in the kitchen," they said.
"She thought I was asleep."
She said once you dropped Dad off, it would be easier.
She said we wouldn't fight if we didn't know.
And she talked about money, like she was planning it."
They looked down at their hands.
I didn't understand all the words, but I understood the way she said them. Like she was excited.
I felt my face go numb.
My brain wanted to reject it, to call it impossible, to call it a misunderstanding. But my child's fear was too real, too sharp. And those messages, that man, that timing, it all lined up like pieces I didn't want to touch.
I wrapped my arms around my child and held them tight.
They clung to me like they were afraid I might disappear.
That night, I didn't sleep much.
I lay beside my child, listening to every sound in the hallway, every distant car door, every footstep that slowed near our room.
I kept my phone off. I kept the lights low.
And I made myself a promise in the dark. Whatever this was, whatever had started moving behind my back, I would not be easy to catch.
I would not be quiet in the way danger wanted. But for now, I stayed quiet in the only way that mattered. I stayed quiet so we could live.
That night, after my child finally fell asleep, I sat in the stiff chair by the window and stared at the street like it was a test I couldn't fail.
The room was quiet, but my mind wasn't.
Every little sound felt loud. The soft hum from the hallway light, the click of a heater turning on, the faint roll of a car tire outside. I kept thinking about that unknown message, "Where are you?" and the way the man on the corner scanned the cars like he was looking for a lost item that mattered. I didn't know if I was being watched anymore, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had already started, and I was late to the story. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, then hesitated.
I held it like it could bite me.
My child had begged me not to call, and I listened, but I still needed to act. If someone could reach me through my number, they could reach me through anything connected to our family.
That thought made my stomach twist.
I turned the phone on for the shortest time possible and went straight to our accounts.
I didn't scroll. I didn't wonder.
I moved like I was walking through a room full of sharp glass. First, I stopped every autopay I could find. Bills, subscriptions, deliveries, anything that could show a pattern, anything that could send a notice to our home address, anything that could create a trail.
Then I locked our shared cards and removed them from every saved payment list.
I changed passwords using a new phrase that no one could guess, not even someone who knew my habits. My hands shook the whole time, but I didn't stop. Fear kept trying to freeze me, and I kept pushing through it like pushing through heavy rain. After that, I cancelled the family plans that linked us together, one by one. The phone plan, the shared cloud storage, the location sharing. It hurt in a strange way, like cutting cords that were supposed to keep a family close. But now those cords felt like ropes that could pull us back into danger. Each time I hit confirm, a small warning popped up. "Are you sure?
You may lose access."
I whispered, "Yes," under my breath, like I was answering someone in the dark. When I was done, I turned the phone off again.
I didn't want it to light up with another message. I didn't want it to betray us with a sound.
I sat still for a moment and listened to my own breathing, trying to make it slow.
Then I took out the little notepad from my bag.
I didn't know why I had brought it, but now it felt important, like writing something down could make me real again. I wrote a note in plain, easy words, not angry and not soft, just sharp enough to cut through lies. I wrote, "Just a small mistake."
I stared at it until the words started to blur.
The sentence looked harmless, like a joke, like nothing.
But it wasn't nothing. It was my way of saying I knew something was wrong without giving away everything I knew. It was a tiny blade hidden in a smile.
It was also a message to myself. I will not pretend this is normal. Before I put the note away, I counted the cash I had left. I separated $300 into an envelope and tucked it deep inside my bag. I kept the rest in a different pocket. I promised myself I would not rely on cards unless I had no other choice. Money wasn't just money anymore.
It was movement. It was time. It was the power to leave quickly.
I waited until the street outside went quieter and the hallway sounds faded. Then I slipped out for a few minutes, hood up, head down, moving like I was just another tired person who couldn't sleep. I went to a late-night shop and bought a prepaid phone for £45, paying in cash.
The clerk didn't care who I was.
That was the best thing in the world, being nobody for a moment. Back in the room, I hid the new phone and placed my old one at the bottom of my bag, powered off, wrapped in a scarf like it was something dangerous.
I checked the lock again. I checked the window.
I checked the room like I could make it safe by looking hard enough. Then I lay down beside my child and watched their face in the dim light. They looked younger when they slept, like the fear hadn't touched them yet. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know if we had hours or days. But I knew I had made the first moves, quiet and careful, like stepping off a cliff and trusting the air to hold me. And as I closed my eyes, I made one more promise, steady this time. Whatever comes next, I will not take my child back into the place where fear started. In the morning, I woke up before my child and lay still for a moment, listening.
No shouting outside the door. No fast footsteps in the hallway.
Just the low hum of the building waking up, pipes clicking softly, someone's distant TV turning on. My muscles hurt like I had been holding myself tight all night, because I had. I got up carefully, packed our things fast, and made sure nothing important was left in the room. I didn't want to leave a trail, not even a small one. Before we walked out, I folded the note one last time in my hand and let the words burn in my head, just a small mistake. Then I left it behind and closed the door like I was closing a chapter of my old life. We ate a simple breakfast from a small shop on the corner. 2 pastries and 2 bottles of water, paid in cash, no questions, no names. I spent £8 and kept my head down while my child took small bites, looking around like they didn't trust the morning. I hated that look. I wanted to give them the kind of day that felt normal, where the biggest worry was homework or a rainy weekend. But normal was a luxury we didn't have right now. All I could do was keep moving and keep my voice calm, even when my thoughts were loud. I chose a train station that didn't feel like ours. Not our usual routes, not our usual stops. I stood in line and bought tickets with cash, making myself breathe slow, making my face look boring and tired. The platform was crowded with people who didn't know me, and for the first time since yesterday, that crowd felt like a shield. My child stayed close to my side, holding my sleeve, and I whispered our new rules as if they were a bedtime story. We don't tell anyone where we are going. We don't answer unknown calls. If you feel scared, you squeeze my hand. If I say we leave right away. My child nodded, serious, like they understood the weight of every word. When the train moved, London began to slide away outside the window. Buildings became smaller. Streets became unfamiliar. My child pressed their forehead to the glass and watched the world change. After a while they turned to me and asked, "Are we going to be okay?" I didn't lie with a perfect promise, because I couldn't. But I also didn't let fear take the whole truth. "We're going to be careful," I said. "And we're going to stay together. That's how we win." I saw their shoulders loosen a little, and I held onto that tiny change like it was gold. We arrived in a place that felt plain enough to hide in. Not empty, not fancy, just busy in a quiet way. People came and went, carrying groceries, pushing strollers, talking about small things. I found a weekly room rental where the owner didn't ask for a long story. They wanted payment up front, and that was it. I paid $420 for the week and made sure the room was simple: 1 bed, 1 chair, a small table, and curtains that closed all the way. I checked the locks, checked the window, and memorized the quickest way out. It wasn't comfort, but it was a place to breathe. That afternoon, I tried to build something that felt like life again. We went for a short walk, just 2 streets, then back. I bought fruit and bread with cash, simple food that didn't draw attention. I gave my child a small job, because jobs can turn fear into focus. "You watch the door when I unpack," I said. "If anyone knocks, you don't answer. You come to me." They did it perfectly, standing tall, trying to be brave, and my heart broke a little because they shouldn't have to be brave like that. At night, when my child slept, I sat on the edge of the bed with the prepaid phone in my hand. I didn't scroll through old messages. I didn't check social apps. I didn't search for comfort in old photos. I only wrote down a plan on paper, in small steps, because big plans felt impossible. Find a safe routine. Keep money separate. Stay in public places. Change locations if anything feels wrong. I wrote it in easy words, as if I was writing to myself from the future, reminding myself how to survive. I looked out the window at the dark streets and let myself think about Europe as more than a word. Europe felt wide and open, not because it was perfect, but because it gave me room to move. Room to disappear if I needed to. Room to start over in small pieces. I didn't know how this would end, and I didn't know who was behind the messages or the waiting eyes. But I knew one thing clearly now: I had listened to my child when it mattered most. I had acted before fear could turn into tragedy. And even though I still felt scared, I also felt something else, quiet and steady, growing in my chest like a new kind of strength. Not loud strength. Not the kind that makes speeches. The kind that packs a bag before dawn, buys a ticket with cash, holds a child's hand, and keeps walking forward. She smiled so hard. Everyone started looking at my parents. Dad shook his head in fake sympathy. $100? He said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. I just sat there, frozen. My cheeks burned. My hands shook. The lawyer had read my name. To Sophia, $100. No explanation. No reason. No apology. Just $100 bucks. The room filled with smirks and chuckles. They had always treated me like the extra piece that didn't fit. But then Mr. Dillon, the lawyer, cleared his throat. Actually, he said, adjusting his glasses, there's a private letter for Sophia. The room went silent. For the first time ever, I saw fear in my parents' eyes. They had no idea what was coming. Neither did I. I was born into a family where everything was planned, schools, careers, even holiday decorations. The Hudson weren't just rich. We were legacy. My grandfather, Hudson, built a manufacturing empire from scratch. My parents inherited it like royalty. My brother, Samuel, was the perfect heir. By middle school, he spoke like a CEO. I was the quiet one, always sketching in the corner. Mom called my art cute. Dad didn't call it anything. At 15, I saved up for a used camera. I took photos of broken fences, street murals, and forgot $100 places. Anything real. When I showed Mom a picture I loved, she just said, "You look tired. Maybe spend less time outside." By high school, it was clear. Samuel was the future. I was the mistake. Once, I overheard my dad after a meeting. "She needs to wake up. Dreams don't build empires." "She's young," my mom replied. "She'll fall in line." But I didn't. I applied to art school in secret. When I told him over dinner, Dad said, "Photography? That's not a career. That's a hobby." Then Mom added the line that stuck. "You're wasting your inheritance." For months later, I moved out. I learned to edit on a laptop that barely worked. I wasn't chasing fame. I just wanted something that was mine. The only one who never judged me was Grandpa. He didn't say much, but when he saw me, he always asked, "Still taking pictures?" And he smiled. Just a little. But it felt real. 5 weeks before he died, I visited him. I hadn't planned it. I was nearby after a shoot, and just showed up. He opened the door himself. He looked older, but his eyes were still sharp. "Well," he said, smirking, "a Hudson who knocks." He let me in without asking why I came. We sat in his study surrounded by leather chairs and dusty portraits. He poured tea, just like always. "What are you working on?" he asked. "A project called Invisible Homes," I told him. "I take pictures of abandoned buildings, places people forget." He looked at me and asked, "What are you trying to say with them?" "That people matter," I said, "even if the world forgets them." He nodded. "That's dangerous work." "Why?" I asked. "Because telling the truth always costs more than people expect." When I got up to leave, he followed me to the door. He opened a drawer and handed me an old film camera. "This was mine," he said. "Before the company, before everything." "I didn't know you took photos," I said. He looked out the window and said, I stopped. "Some dreams can't survive the weight of inheritance." Then he looked at me, really looked. "Don't let them take your eye, Sophia. That's your gift. And your rebellion." That was the last thing he ever said to me. The will was read in a midtown office with glass walls and marble floors. Everyone was dressed like they were going to a board meeting. I wore my best black dress, even straight $100 my hair, just to avoid my mom's usual comments. The room smelled like money. Everyone waited to hear what they'd get. Vacation homes. Stocks. Antique guns. Then came my name. To Sophia, $100. Laughter. Mocking glances. Heat crawled up my neck. And then, a private letter, Mr. Dillon said. And everything changed. When my grandfather passed away, the family gathered in a quiet room filled. Everyone was waiting to hear what he had left behind for each of us. My mother received a beautiful necklace that had once belonged to my grandmother. My father was given a carefully prepared portfolio filled with property developer documents, his name printed neatly across the top. There was also a handwritten letter placed beside it, but I couldn't read it from where I was sitting. I stayed quiet, trying to control the shaking in my hands by folding them tightly in my lap under the table. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Then the lawyer, Mr. Dillon, glanced in my direction. To Sophia, he announced, pausing for a moment, "Hudson leaves the sum of $100." The room went still. Everyone just froze for a second, the words hanging in the air like dust. And then, just like that, the silence cracked. My father let out a sharp breath and shook his head. "Well," he said, "I guess that's what rebellion gets you." My mother actually laughed, short and sharp. A cousin leaned over and whispered something that sounded like, "Must have been one hell of a photograph," though I wasn't sure what he meant. I felt my face burn with embarrassment. Heat rose up my neck, and I fought back tears. I wasn't going to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. I swallowed hard and nodded once. "Understood," I said quietly. It wasn't the money that hurt, it never was. What truly stung was the message behind it. I had always felt like I didn't quite fit in with my family. Like I was an outsider among people who shared my blood. But hearing my name spoken like an afterthought, and seeing the amused expressions on my parents' faces, as if I was some kind of joke, that was something else entirely. For a moment, I wanted to get up and walk out. I nearly did. But then Mr. Dillon cleared his throat. "There is one more thing," he said. The room fell instantly silent again. He looked directly at me before lowering his eyes to the papers in front of him. "There is a private addendum," he said slowly, "meant only for Sophia." The words dropped like a stone in still water. Everyone stared. My father frowned. "What do you mean, private?" My mother shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "She already got what she was due," she said sharply, still riding high from the $100 revelation. Mr. Dillon didn't react. Calmly, he explained, "Mr. Hudson left a sealed envelope in my care. It contains specific instructions and is to be read in private. Sophia, would you mind stepping into the next room?" Whispers broke out immediately. Curious eyes followed me. My parents didn't hide their irritation. My cousin Samuel looked completely lost, as if he'd missed something big. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze on me. I avoided eye contact and followed Mr. Dillon down a short hallway to a quieter office. The air was cooler there, the silence heavier. On the desk sat a thick cream-colored envelope. My name was written on the front in soft, elegant cursive. I recognized the handwriting right away. "It's from your grandfather," Mr. Dillon said gently. I picked up the envelope. It was heavier than I expected. I turned to him and asked, "Did you read it?"
He shook his head. "No."
"I was told not to, but I was instructed to give you time. Take as long as you need." He left me alone. I sat down slowly and ran my fingers over the wax seal. It had a tiny symbol, an old-fashioned camera, pressed into the center. I took a deep breath, then broke the seal. Inside were several handwritten pages. The letter began simply, "My dearest Sophia." The first paragraph hit me like a wave. He apologized for what had just happened in the other room. He said he knew it would hurt, but that it was necessary. "I needed you to see them for who they are when they believed you had nothing," he wrote. I kept reading, my eyes moving faster with every word. With each line, the world outside faded, replaced by a growing sense of shock and wonder. The $21 inheritance was a trick, a distraction, a mask to hide something much bigger. My grandfather had created a secret plan, months in the making. A plan only I was meant to discover. I was, in fact, the true heir to the Hudson Foundation. Not the board. Not my cousin Samuel. Not even my own parents.
Me.
He had arranged for everything to bypass the public will and be handed to me in private. I now owned a private art gallery, a beautiful penthouse studio, and most importantly, I held 81% control of the Hudson Creative Trust, a company that quietly managed the family's most valuable creative and financial assets. Then came the line that stopped me cold. "They laughed, Sophia, but they laughed too soon." I read that sentence 5 times. My grandfather had not just left me wealth. He had handed me the legacy, the vision, the future of the family name. And he had done it in a way that no one else saw coming. The documents attached confirmed everything. I had the controlling stake. I had the authority. While the rest of the family squabbled over vacation houses, jewelry, and dusty books, I had been given the heart of it all. Not just the money, but the meaning behind it. And most important of all, my grandfather made one thing clear. This inheritance wasn't a burden. It was a choice. I could walk away. Or I could lead. The decision, he said, had always been mine to make. I never imagined I'd end up here, sitting in an office like this, with a letter in my hand that could change everything. I wasn't supposed to become the CEO. No one ever expected me to be in boardrooms or make big business decisions. Honestly, I didn't expect it either. And I definitely wasn't the kind of person who would sell out just to protect a brand or a legacy. But there was one person who always saw something different in me, my grandfather. He didn't ask me to be powerful. He didn't ask me to be rich. He asked me to stay true to what made me unique, my eye, my way of seeing the world. In the letter he left me, he wrote, "You see the world, Sophia. That's rarer than any asset I've ever owned. The trust is yours to shape, but only if you promise not to become like them." I smiled through my tears as I read those words. He had believed in me all along. He had seen me for who I truly was, even when no one else in the family did. In a drawer locked inside the gallery he had secretly bought, I found something I didn't expect. Dozens of photographs. My photographs. Every print I thought had been sold off to strangers. Every piece I believed had vanished into the world. He had bought them all, using fake names. He had kept them safe, cataloged them, and stored them with care, like treasures. He never judged me. He never tried to interfere. He had simply been watching, silently, patiently, believing in me from the shadows. He didn't want to leave the company to someone who memorized the rules. He wanted to leave it to someone who could rewrite them, reimagine them. As I sat in his office, I looked around and really saw it for the first time. The walls weren't covered in stock reports or business awards. They were lined with books. Books on photography, ethics, creativity, and philosophy. Inside the envelope, I also found a small black box. When I opened it, there was a single brass key on a leather cord. Underneath it, a handwritten note said, "Beacon Street. Top floor. Your new studio. Your real inheritance." I was stunned. I came here expecting nothing. Maybe a watch, or an old photo, or some kind words. But I left with something far greater, a future. One no one in my family even knew existed yet. In the next room, my parents and my brother were still laughing, thinking I had walked away with scraps. They were wrong. And I decided not to tell them, not yet. Let them laugh a little longer. I walked back into the conference room, calm and collected, the letter folded neatly in my purse. My father made a smug comment about a $21 check, and they all laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. Samuel asked, "Everything all right?" But not like he cared. More like he was just curious. I nodded and said, "Just needed a moment." Then I sat down and watched them, really watched them. The way my mother played with her necklace, a family heirloom. The way my father leaned back, looking like he had just won something. The way Samuel was already bored, scrolling on his phone. That's when I remembered what Grandpa always said. You need to see them as they are when they think you have nothing. He was right. This was the test. And now I had to decide how to pass it. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet. I didn't answer my parents' fake concern texts. I didn't respond when Samuel sent me a screenshot of an article about wealth and inheritance with a winking emoji. Instead, I got to work. I met with Mr. Dillon, my grandfather's lawyer, and we began the careful, quiet process of transferring control of the Hudson Creative Trust to me. I visited the studio on Beacon Street. It was real. A dream come true. Sunlight filled every corner. The space was open and peaceful. Part gallery, part studio, part home, and all mine. On the walls were my photographs, beautifully framed. Some I hadn't seen in years. Some I'd completely forgotten. But he hadn't. Everyone was labeled with a handwritten tag, noting the date and location. He called the space Hudson Light Studio, a tribute to both the family legacy and to light, my language. It felt like I had stepped into a world where Grandpa had followed his creative dream instead of building an empire. And now, somehow, I was standing between both. But I couldn't stop thinking, what would I do with this? What would they do when they found out? A part of me wanted to drop the truth at a family dinner and watch their smug faces melt into shock. But another part of me, a wiser part, knew I could do more than just get even. I could build something that would speak for itself. Something they couldn't ignore. That's how I would win. Not with drama. With vision. 2 weeks later, the invitations went out. They were simple, elegant, and unforgettable. Hudson Light Studio presents The Inheritance of Vision, a debut gallery event celebrating unseen perspectives. It wasn't just a show, it was a message. Samuel RSVP'd right away, probably hoping for publicity. My mother sent a vague, "We'll see." My father said nothing, but Samuel later told me they were all planning to attend. Curiosity, ego, maybe even fear. Perfect. Opening night came, and the studio glowed. Every wall was covered in my work. From my earliest photos, awkward and experimental, to powerful portraits, empty streets, overlooked lives. It was my story told in light. A journey of someone who had always seen the world a little differently. But the final room, that was the one I had waited for most. And that, well, that's where the real story begins. The true inheritance. In the center of the gallery stood a glass case, spotlighted like a priceless treasure. Inside, framed neatly, was a $21 check. To most, it looked small, maybe even strange. But to me, it meant everything. Next to it sat a polished plaque, once gifted to me, Sophia, during the reading of my grandfather Hudson's will. Below the plaque, a quiet but powerful line was engraved. Sometimes the smallest inheritance is the greatest test. I had timed their arrival perfectly. As the crowd listened to a local art critic explain how the exhibit captured a quiet but powerful rebellion through art, I saw them walk in, my parents and my brother, Samuel. Cameras clicked. Whispers filled the room. I felt their confusion before they said anything. Samuel reached me first, staring at a wall of black and white portraits. "Is this all yours?" he asked, brows furrowed. "Yes," I answered simply. "Since when do you run this place?" I smiled. "Since always." Then came my mother, dressed in pearls and wearing that stiff, polite expression she always wore to charity events. "This is ambitious," she said carefully. "Did someone sponsor this?" "No sponsors," I replied calmly. "Just one believer." My father, arms crossed and eyes narrowed, glanced around. "Where did you get the money for all this?" I tilted my head. "That's not really the question you want to ask, is it?" He fell silent. At that moment, Mr. Dillon stepped beside me. He held a glass of champagne and wore a rare smile. "Shall we?" he asked. I nodded. We walked to the small stage near the check exhibit. The room hushed. "Ladies and gentlemen," Whitaker began, "thank you for joining us this evening at Hudson Light Studio, founded by and dedicated to the creative vision of Sophia." A few gasps. Cameras lifted. Heads turned. "But tonight, we also share something you may not know," he continued. "As the executor of Hudson's estate, I am honored to announce that Sophia is not only the founder of this gallery, but the sole beneficiary of the Hudson Creative Trust." The room stirred. My mother's face went pale. Samuel blinked in disbelief. My father shifted forward, then stopped. Whitaker's voice remained steady. Mr. Hudson believed legacy should follow merit, not bloodline. Sophia's perseverance, even in the face of rejection and silence, earned his deepest respect and full support. He raised his glass. To Sophia, the true heir. Applause thundered around me. But I didn't look at the crowd. I looked at them, my family. My mother's lips were tight, her expression unreadable. My father's fists clenched. Samuel stood frozen, unsure if he should feel proud or betrayed. I stepped down from the platform and walked directly toward them. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother hissed. "Because you never asked," I said quietly. "You never asked what I was building. You only asked why I didn't follow your path." "We're still your family," she said. "And yet," I replied, "you laughed when I failed. You judged me when I had nothing. That check? You thought it was the full measure of my worth. And this?" I gestured around the room. "This wasn't revenge. It was a mirror. You just didn't like what it showed you." They had no words, because what could they say? I left them standing there and returned to the people who had come to witness, not just my work, but my truth. That night, I didn't go back to the family home. I stayed in the penthouse my grandfather left me. After everyone had gone and the excitement had faded, I stood barefoot in the top-floor studio. My photographs surrounded me. The city glowed quietly outside the windows. On the desk sat the same $21 check, no longer hidden in shame. I had reframed it, placed it next to a photo I'd taken of my grandfather long ago, staring thoughtfully out of a train window. No one else had noticed that moment but me. And now it lived here, eternal. That check wasn't just money. It was a reminder. He hadn't left me wealth to protect me. He left it to free me. In the weeks that followed, I launched something bigger. A residency program within Hudson Light Studio for young artists from underserved communities. One floor of the building became live workspaces filled with art supplies, cameras, mentorship, and creative freedom. The first group arrived timid and unsure, just like I once was. But I saw the same spark in their eyes. With the Hudson Creative Trust under my care, visual storytellers often pushed aside or unheard. At our first board meeting, I wore black jeans, boots, and confidence. Some trustees raised eyebrows until I showed them a 5-year strategy that balanced growth, sustainability, and purpose. And I had made sure I was ready. Samuel never returned to the gallery. My parents stopped calling. And that was okay. Not because I was bitter, but because I was clear. Some relationships are roots. Others are weights. A few months later, one of the new artists knocked on my office door. She held an old camera tightly. Her voice was soft. "Do you ever worry," she asked, "that people will only see your money, not your art?" I smiled. "All the time. But it only matters if you believe it. If you lead with your vision, the rest catches up." She nodded slowly, storing those words for a day she might need them. Maybe I needed to hear them again, too. On the 1-year anniversary of my grandfather's passing, Mr. Dillon arrived with one final letter. Just a few lines in his careful script. "Wealth is not what you hold, but what you choose to build. You were always the legacy I believed in, Sophia. You just had to believe it, too." That night, I lit a candle in the gallery and left the doors unlocked. A few strangers wandered in, some students, some travelers. They paused in front of the $21 check, whispering and wondering. They didn't know the full story. They didn't have to, because real legacy doesn't need to be explained.
Weapons needed, sire. Yes, boss. Gold needed. Jump to it! That's a double! Need some muscle? الصحراء نسير. نشد الرحال إلى المعركة.
Saving.
نحن في خدمتك. انظروا العدو.
What? You dogs. What? All that way?
We are under attack. A message from the abbot.
I must not falter. I must be strong. Yes, boss. Are you well prepared?
Have a message, Lord. A message from the abbot.
I will remember this defeat, and I will pay you back. Here we go.
Move you. A message from the nomad.
You have my admiration. You can fight. That much is clear.
Can't place that there, my lord.
Where are the macemen? What? All that way?
Recruits needed, sire.
Shoulder! Homs! Moving out!
We are under attack.
Again! Shot!
Recruits needed, sire.
Ready, sir! Moving out!
ما هي أوامرك؟ لن تشتكي جمالنا.
What do you need? Move! Move!
نحن صفوة النخبة. حركوا الجمال إلى قلب الصحراء نسير. الرحال إلى المعركة.
Attain! Shot!
Weapons needed, sire.
Yes,
Weapons
boss.
needed, sire. Recruits needed, sire. Recruits needed, sire.
Fall in!
Feel the power.
Attain! Shot! Quick! March!
We are under attack. The granary is full, my lord. Recruits needed, sire.
Jump to it!
A message, lord.
Well, that was a total disaster.
Me lord? Instructions!
Attain! Shot!
Weapons needed, sire.
Need some muscle.
The granary is full, my lord. رهن إشارة.
Sir! Shoulder! Arms!
Overwrite this saved game.
Saving.
Ready, sir!
We are under attack.
Fall in! Forward! Attain! Shot! Jump to it! At the double!
The granary is full, my lord.
Sir! Moving out! Attain! Shot!
Weapons needed, sire.
Shoulder! Arms! Moving out! Ready, sir! Fall in!
granary is full, my lord.
Attain! Shot! Quick! March!
Yes, boss. Weapons needed, sire.
Feel the power.
Can't place that there, my lord. A message, lord.
Lift those crossbows, men! We're off!
What? What? All that way? What? All that way? Yes, boss.
Here we go!
Move, you dogs.
Come to it! Forward!
Yeah.
Where are the mace men? Move! Move! What do you need?
نحن في خدمتك. The granary is full, my lord.
Need some muscle?
Attain! Shot!
Gold needed.
Attain!
Weapons needed, sire. Not enough gold.
Attain! Shot!
A message, lord.
Nice one, lads! Keep at it!
Attain! Shot! Shoulder!
We are under attack.
halt! Moving out! Ready, sir!
What?
Forward! At the double!
Yes, boss. ما هي أوامرك؟ حركوا الجمال! إلى قلب الصحراء نسير! نشد الرحال إلى المعركة! أطلقوا بلا تردد! أصيبوا الأعداء!
Attain! Shot!
نحن صحوة النصر. حركوا الجمال! Weapons needed, sire.
Jump to it! Moving out!
What do you need? What? All that way? Mario, I mean. Need some chicken feed. What? Yes, boss. Smash 'em, lads! نحن صفوة النصر. Yes, boss. Recruits needed, sire. Weapons needed, sire. We await orders. A message, Lord.
Castle's not gonna hold for long with this one.
Here we go! We're out of masonry! Ready, sir!
What do you need?
Need some muscle?